Hello my loves, it's me, Belle. I just want to give you guys a quick heads up that the first part of today's video is going to be slightly different from the regular ones. And don't worry, I've made chapters in this video and you can just click ahead if you don't want to see it and skip this part. The reason why I'm doing this is because not only do I want to give you guys the chance to get a better understanding of why Ouija board sessions happen to go wrong so often, but I also want to give anyone who might want to try this at home a general idea of what you're getting into and some basic stuff that you can watch out for so that you don't end up in one of my stories. Just keep in mind this is my own knowledge and opinions, not something that I researched on Google and threw together for this video. So some of you might disagree with them and that's totally okay. But for the record, I've been using some of these tools since I was 15 and I'm 37 now, which I won't do the math, but yeah, do with that what you will. So let's get this party started. Are you ready? Then take my hand, hold it tight, and let's walk into the darkness together. Okay, so consider this sort of as a crash course. I won't go too deep into anything to save us time, but I'll try to give you a good understanding of what's going on. So, tarot cards, Ouija boards, pendulums, runes, divining rods, oracle cards, crystal balls, water scrying, tea leaf and tobacco reading, chicken bones and seashells, and many others which I won't mention because we will never finish, all work the same way. Their point is to give you answers, usually about the future. How? Well, although some believe that your own energy is what is empowering these tools to work, the vast majority of people believe that there's a spirit guiding you to those answers by setting up the tarot cards in a correct way so that you can see what lies ahead, or by moving the Ouija board's planchette from letter to letter to communicate a message. Now, unless you have the ability to see spirits, and even with mediums, that's not a common gift, you really have no idea who exactly is on the other side of these tools and giving you answers. That's why many psychics, mediums, and spiritualists work solely with their own spirit guides in order to use these tools, because of the dangers that communicating with unknown entities can bring. Now, when you use your guides, you become used to them and it's easier to spot something that's off. It works very much like the real world. If you imagine your mom comes to visit you with a mask on and a voice changer, she's still your mom. You know her well enough that you can tell by her character, phrases, and her way of being in general that it's her under the mask. And if they did something out of character, you'd catch it, right? Now imagine it wasn't your mother, but your third cousin Larry, who's like 5 times removed, lives in a different country, and who you only see for 5 minutes during weddings and funerals. It would be extremely hard to know if it was Larry under that mask, regardless of what he did or said, because you don't know him as well. So this is why I would personally recommend that if you pick up one of these tools, you either have a strong knowledge of what you're doing, and I mean going way beyond a few Google searches and a few article reads, or better yet, you have someone who knows really well what they're doing. I also do not suggest that you start off with the Ouija board. Not because it has a higher risk per se like others would suggest, but because it's the one tool that gives you extremely specific answers and phrases that the spirits will word on their own and they choose how to word them themselves. So yeah, it's much more dangerous to give someone an option where they can tell you what they want and how they want to say it, versus an option where it's either yes, no, or the messages are already pre-written and you have to stick to that. Of course, when you do these things, you do run the risk of having a malignant spirit attached to you, haunt you, and even possess you. That's why you need to have a very clear and conscious understanding of what this looks and feels like, what to do to avoid it, and how to stop it if it does happen. Many people spot something off during conversations or sessions, and they try to end the session, but the spirit continues trying to communicate and they continue the session because of it. And that is a big no no. Others freak out and just leave, or they lack the knowledge to close the session correctly, and they end up leaving the door wide open for spirits to stick around as long as they want, which is also a big no no. Because why would you leave your front door wide open for anyone to come in without you really knowing them or knowing they're even coming in and out of your house? If you begin to feel sick, like nauseous or dizzy or like you're about to faint, those are also big no nos because that means the spirit is getting either way too close for comfort or they may even be trying to possess you. So you definitely need to close that session ASAP. You should also keep in mind that not only malignant spirits can affect you. When the spirit becomes too close to you and they're strong enough or you're sensitive enough to pick up these things, you could end up smelling their perfume or cologne, or you might smell their favorite cigarettes. Or, for example, if their house always smelled like vanilla, you might smell vanilla. Or if they worked in an orange factory, you might smell oranges. You can also be affected by things that affected them when they were alive, such as back pain or a limp on a bad leg. A lot of times, because of the unusual energy the spirits bring with them, you can also end up with headaches, nausea, and even a heaviness on your neck and your shoulders, even after the session ends. You can also feel really tired or weak if one of them tries to drain your energy to help them communicate, which is often the case. Another thing to definitely remember about all of this is that these spirits were human. They have their own ideas, emotions, desires, and so on. So, just as humans do, they can take offense, they can become stubborn, get angry, or do or say something which they believe is funny or smart that may upset you. Some might even find you attractive and try to stick around or come back repeatedly whenever you do sessions. Tact and common sense are required when you use divination tools. Annoying, insulting, threatening, aggravating them will only work to your disadvantage. Trust me. So I'm focusing on the bad here because this is obviously Belle's terrifying tales and not Belle's happy rainbow sunshine stories. And although good things can obviously come from communications like this, I really want to drill in the fact that you should never dive right into this without knowing what you're doing or having someone with you who really does. Even when you're experienced, things can go wrong. But it's that experience that saves you at the end of the day. So keep that in mind the next time you look at a Ouija board and think, maybe I should. So, could these kids have really been affected by a spirit? Sure, especially if they made some of the mistakes I mentioned here. Now, you have a decent understanding of what could go wrong with Ouija boards, and you can come to your own conclusions after you hear the story. And that was basically my main idea, to give you guys just the tools that you needed in order to fully understand what may or may not have been going on, and then form your own conclusions. Personally, and I will be honest here, I think one of these cases might have been just life being life, kids being kids, and not really some supernatural force trying to take over a classroom. But the other two do show promise, and I'm not sure that it wasn't that. So, yeah, let's start the story and you guys can decide for yourselves. Here we go. So, the first case of Ouija sessions gone wrong is going to be the most recent one. In southwest Colombia, next to the upbeat city of Cali, lies Cauca. Cauca is not only known for its rainforests and coastal algae, but also has a reputation for hosting a vast number of indigenous religions from local areas. In Cauca, there's a small town named Timbique, where 36 children from a school called San Francisco de Asís had to be rushed to the hospital after suffering convulsions, fainting, temporary blindness, and anxiety. From what is said, only a couple of students were playing with the board, But during the session, a girl who was playing fell to the floor and began to convulse. The friends who were playing with her tried to aid her, but as soon as they touched her, they fell to the floor and began convulsing as well. A few students that were near them saw them drop and ran over to try and help them, and the same exact thing happened. Eventually, the school staff realized what was happening, and they, along with some of the parents who were in the school at the time, decided to take the students to the local hospital. The school's rector, a man named Emilio Balanta, sprinkled holy water on the students and said a prayer before the parents and the staff began to take the children to the hospital. The odd thing here is that none of the adults were affected when they touched the kids. I'm not sure if the holy water and prayer was said before or after staff began to touch them, so we can't really claim that it was that saved them from the same fate, but it's definitely odd that no one else in that school, besides the children that had touched those affected, ended up in the same position. After this happened and the kids were taken to the hospital, a rumor began to spread that the students all had been involved in some sort of online challenge that was gaining popularity amongst the students in the school. However, there is no mention anywhere of what this challenge consisted of. The rector was quoted saying, "It is a very unusual phenomenon which occurred. A girl started to struggle, so the others grabbed her so she wouldn't hit herself. Then another girl started to have the same problem. There are 36 students. They are children of all ages." And that's pretty much all he said. Amarildo Correa, the education secretary of Cauca, said, "We are asking parents, administrators, and teachers to be more aware around students so we can prevent these types of events from happening again. All of the students have recovered and gone back to their normal lives, but there's still no logical explanation to what happened that day that could have caused all these children to collapse, convulse, and suffer these symptoms. Some even for days after touching each other. Not unless you believe it was the board, that is." This isn't the only incident where a Colombian school uses a Ouija board and has something similar happen. In Pasto, which is 7.5 hours away from Cauca, 28 schoolgirls had participated in a Ouija board session. It had started at the Galeras Educational Institution on March of 2023. The girls began to get anxious among other symptoms not specified, and eventually they fainted. The teachers and directors of the school informed the parents and accompanied the students to a nearby municipal hospital. Hugo Torres, the director of the institution, said at the time that there were 28 possible cases of anxiety in school students. The respective parents and/or guardians were informed of the situation at the time. He tried to pass it off as if all of these girls were suffering from anxiety. However, the parents weren't really convinced. In fact, they began to talk amongst each other, and pretty soon we're all aware that these girls had used the spirit board during school hours, and they were definitely not happy. Hugo denied the claims and said, given the reported cases, a series of comments were unleashed on the community that rather than helping to resolve the situation, led to the confusion and adverse environment for our work. He also said that the school was waiting for an official diagnosis to then provide others with reliable information, and told the people to avoid jumping to conclusions and avoid diagnosis of their own. So he basically tried to do some major damage control by downplaying the fact that their students were using the board in school without the parents' knowledge, and that it may have led to a serious problem. Now, the official diagnosis for all 28 girls was anxiety. So I guess he wasn't exactly wrong there if you consider the doctor's point of view. One of the girls' mothers who happened to work at the hospital commented on the situation and said, "Our children have good breakfast, and it cannot be said that what's happening is due to lack of food." She urged the parents to find the cause of the issue, stating, "Parents, you have to move. Investigate what's happening at school, because our children cannot continue in this situation." So, about a day's drive north from there, we come across a town called Hato, which in November of 2022 had 11 children between the ages of 13 and 17 all pass out in one of the corridors of the Agricultural Technical Institute. They were all just laying there when the teachers found them. 6 of the children were quickly transported to a nearby health center, while another 5 were taken to the Manuela Beltran Hospital. When they arrived and were examined, the children were suffering from violent vomiting, abdominal pain, and muscle spasms. They also complained about shortness of breath and had been drooling heavily. The children had been playing with the board before they had collapsed. Hato's mayor, Jose Pablo Tolosa Rondon, said, "It is not ruled out that it was the Ouija board. That is part of the investigation." And kudos to him for saying that, by the way. But yeah, I will continue the quote. Others say that they consumed water from a container. Others that they came from a pool and had been given something to eat. After checking the children out, the doctors diagnosed them with food poisoning, which could absolutely be the case. But let's face it, even if it wasn't, when has a doctor ever diagnosed someone with acute Ouija board syndrome? That's it for today. What is up with Colombia and all the Ouija board school usage? Which of these stories do you think is really due to it, though? Let me know in the comments. Also, let me know where you're from and if you found me through a bill. You can help my small channel grow by sharing it with others who like mysterious and maybe sort of paranormal stories, just like us. And as always, please remember to like if you liked and subscribe if you want more. I'll see you next time.